I'm about to share a story with you that is so unbelievable. But rather than listening to this story through your lens, I want you to imagine what it would be like to be living in a strange town, have no support system, no friends, no family, and have a husband that is working out of state to make enough money to make the ends meet. So you're isolated in what I can only describe as a complete nightmare with your mother-in-law. Today's episode is a powerful and challenging story from one of our listeners. Let's call her Sarah. She opened her home to her mother-in-law who was having a difficult time, and she was hoping for a peaceful arrangement, but soon found herself in a situation where every single boundary was tested. Sarah's experience is an example of how sometimes communicating or requesting someone respect your boundary, sometimes that isn't enough. Sometimes we have to learn how to mind our boundary, especially when someone refuses to respect our space. I'll first share Sarah's story as she lived it, and then we're going to explore some strategies that she could have used along the way to hold these boundaries in the face of intense resistance. My hope is that this gives you practical tools to navigate similar situations in your own life. Sarah welcomed her mother-in-law into her home while her husband worked out of state. With no close family of her own in the area, Sarah felt the weight of managing this dynamic all alone. She hoped for mutual respect, but very quickly that hope was replaced with exhaustion and frustration. To kick things off, her mother-in-law kept the TV blaring all night long. This disrupted the entire household. Her daughter couldn't sleep, and when she went to her mother-in-law and asked if she could turn it down a little bit so that the little girl could sleep, the mother-in-law literally picked up the remote and went click, click. Just 2 clicks. And as you know, when you have a TV so loud, 2 clicks, that does nothing. So eventually Sarah just moved her daughter into her bedroom just so that there was kind of a quieter place for her to sleep, only to have her mother-in-law take over her daughter's bedroom. She started storing her stuff there, buying lots of stuff at garage sales and just pack ratting it in there. And then one day, Sarah was walking down the hallway and she's like, wait, where is my daughter's mattress? She goes into her mother's room and there is her daughter's mattress. So she goes to grab it to go put it back on her daughter's bed, only to find out that her mother-in-law soiled it. And that's not all. Sarah's mother-in-law started dictating where the pets could go in the house, as if it was her own house. She started borrowing her car without asking, returning it late. Twice, Sarah was written up at work because she didn't get there on time. I mean, just imagine this level of disregard in your own home, and all you're trying to do is be nice. Now, Sarah, she tried addressing each issue with respect. She tried to compromise. She wanted to work with her mother-in-law, but every request was literally ignored, dismissed, or she was just mocked. So basically, Sarah was requesting a boundary be respected. It was ignored again and again and again. Things escalated even further when Sarah's mother-in-law started banging at her door, just like erratically at 3 a.m. telling her like, I'm going to need a ride to my appointment tomorrow. I mean, just weird things. Like she would start to remember things in the middle of the night and she would wake up Sarah in the middle of the night to let her know that she was going to need a car ride or a ride to such and such. It was insanity. One time she needed to use the bathroom so bad and Sarah's daughter was in the shower and she was banging and she wouldn't stop, and it scared Sarah's daughter so much that she came out of the bathroom just dripping wet, crying because she just wanted to get away from the mother-in-law. All of this just made the house just feel like it was just this constant state of tension. Sarah and her daughter were trapped in the middle of a nightmare trying to navigate daily battles without the support of her husband, who he was unaware any of this was happening. Yeah. Can you imagine? Sarah's very introverted. She didn't want to bother her husband or burden him with all this drama, so she was trying to manage all of this on her own. But Sarah's mother-in-law, that's not her agenda. She was in the background telling her son, Sarah's husband, your wife is unreasonable. This is how she's treating me. And she was spinning such a crazy story that the husband was like, I don't even know what to believe. I don't know what's going on. Desperate to make her husband see her point, Sarah began finding situations where she could record her mother-in-law's behavior to then show her husband to say like, see, like, this is what we're going through. Eventually, he was able to get a better idea of like what was honestly going on. But even with his support, it didn't really change anything. The mother-in-law resisted every attempt to create peace. She promised to move out multiple times, never following through with any of them. Lots of money problems, would hide money, lose money, gamble it away. It was Such a, like I said, a nightmare. When she finally did move out, all the other family members turned on Sarah, shaming her. I cannot believe you kicked out our mother. I cannot believe you kicked out my sister. Like just making her feel like a monster for making her leave her house. Ultimately, Sarah decided to go no contact. She reached a point where her own peace and well-being, as well as that of her daughter, required distance. Sarah was truly spot on when she said she felt trapped. She was trapped without support, and that's a feeling I know many of you can relate to it. Now that you know Sarah's story, let's take a step back and just talk about things that could have been done differently to mind her boundaries at different points. First, let's talk about the constant disruptions. We have the loud TV, the banging at night, and just the general noise that kept Sarah and her daughter from getting any sleep. When someone repeatedly disrupts your peace, especially in shared spaces, it is crucial to set a firm boundary with a clear consequence. One way Sarah could have done this is she could have said, we need the house to be quiet from this time to this time. If you cannot respect that rule, we are going to have to find other living arrangements. Setting the expectation is one thing, but following through on the consequence, that's where it becomes a real boundary. Now, if her mother-in-law kept ignoring this, Sarah could have started planning a concrete exit strategy, possibly with the help of her husband once he saw the recordings. Sometimes protecting your peace means preparing for a bigger change, even if that feels overwhelming. Another moment where Sarah could have enforced a boundary was with her car. Her mother-in-law was using it without permission. It was affecting her job and her livelihood. In a situation like this, it's essential to set a non-negotiable limit. So a possible script could be, I rely on my car for work and I cannot afford to lose my job. I will not be lending you the car anymore. So if you need transportation, you will have to arrange for something else like an Uber or something like that. And then you need to limit access to certain belongings like keys. So hide the keys, keep the keys always with you. This is a physical boundary. Next, let's address the invasion of personal space. So when her mother-in-law took over her daughter's room and soiled the mattress, Sarah's personal and family boundaries were deeply violated. In cases where somebody will not respect your personal space, sometimes you have to create physical boundaries to reinforce it. This might look like keeping certain rooms locked or limiting access to certain shared spaces. It might feel drastic, but when you're dealing with someone who continuously ignores verbal boundaries, these actions to reinforce your space isn't up for negotiation. And then there's the matter of involving Sarah's husband. With him so far away, he was unaware to the full extent of what she was going through. Sarah felt isolated. One option she used was documenting. She literally captured her mother-in-law's poor behavior on video to show her husband. If you're in a similar situation and your partner is not there to witness it, I would do the same thing. I would start documenting, this is what happened on this date, document, and when it's legal and you can, record it. But she also could have opened up to her husband a lot sooner. I understand she was trying to keep the drama at home, but what you were going through is not something you should have gone through alone. So I would have reached out to my husband and I would have said, even though this is hard to believe, this is happening with your mom and I need your support on this. Our family well-being we're not okay. We are not okay and we need your support and we need to figure out how to get your mom out of the house. Finally, let's talk about the difficult decision to go no contact. For Sarah, this was the last resort, but sometimes when someone repeatedly crosses your boundaries and shows no willingness to respect you, distance becomes the healthiest option. No contact isn't about punishment, it is about self-preservation. If you have set boundaries, if you've communicated them clearly, you've documented the behavior, you've sought support, but nothing changes, then it's okay to choose your peace over constant struggle. Sarah's story is a painful reminder that sometimes boundaries require us to take drastic steps. Documentation, involving a neutral third party, setting physical limits, and even distancing ourselves completely are all tools to help us protect our peace. Remember, boundaries aren't just about making requests. They're about deciding how will you respond if those requests aren't honored. It's okay to enforce consequences, to take steps, to feel strong, even if others don't fully understand. Your home, your peace, your mental health are worth it. Thank you, Sarah, for allowing us to share your story and learn from your experience. If you're feeling isolated, if someone in your life is constantly pushing past your boundaries, know that you have options and you have support. Until next time, friend, make sure you keep minding your boundaries. Bye.